Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, a podcast about leaving self-doubt in the dust, punching fear in the face, and taking bold action toward your biggest dreams. I'm Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my friend Tracie Shroyer. Say hi, Tracie.
Hello.
I am so glad to have you on. I know we've been involved kind of peripherally for years because I worked for a big internet marketing company, and you were involved with several people that I'm friends with through that connection. And so I was glad when we actually got to connect and get to know each other on a first name basis versus just like seeing each other posting in Facebook groups.
Right. Chatting. Yep.
I know. Well, because you were always one of the people that I recommended because you are tech savvy, which I am not. Like, trust me, the production of this podcast has gotten down to like dead simple. I can put this in like Google Drive and run it from Zoom, and that's like.
But you know what? That's the thing about being techie is as long as you know the steps. So your podcast techie, Angie, you just didn't even realize it.
Ooh.
It's just steps and processes.
I like that reframe. Yeah, because we've gotten this down to a process. I had my assistant, which, you know, shout out to my team at A Squared that helped me keep everything on track. Like, you went through this after you booked the spot on the podcast. Like, there's a whole automation that kicks in and says, here's how to get ready. Here's how to think of ideas. Here's what to have on hand as we get ready to record. Reminder that it's coming up tomorrow. Here's the link. And I did not build all that. I just gave the idea to my team and said, hey, can you make this happen? Pushing buttons, not my thing.
It's awesome. You are like legit. Like, you are a pro.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Oh, man. And this has been fantastic because I love that. I love surrounding myself with people that make me believe that tech is less hard than it is, especially these days, because I know it's a lot more intuitive than it used to be. God, I remember in high school being challenged to like code an HTML site. And I was like, what? This is no. Drag and drop is way more my pace. Now that we've started the podcast with a rant about tech, basically tell us a little bit about you and your background.
So I help online entrepreneurs with their tech, as you've kind of alluded to, specifically when it comes to launching an online course or a membership or some type of business project. And the really fun part about that is I've built the business to support my dream of living full-time on the road and traveling the US in an RV.
Yes. And that's what I loved that when you told me that that's what you wanted to talk about, because I think a lot of people who have listened to the podcast by now realize, especially if you can hear me in different locations, that I'm traveling while producing this podcast, while taking on client work, while building my own business. And on the one hand, it's like, woohoo, living a dream, man, this is something that I wanted to do and I made it happen. And some days I just wake up and go, is this life? Mm-hmm. What? How did I get here? Okay. And then some days it's like, I just want to be in a home where things are uncomplicated and I don't have to worry about where I'm going to be next. So I don't know. Do you have any kind of similar thoughts that go through your head when you're on the road?
Well, mine is always, I just wish my internet was working. And we have redundant systems. So my husband also is working full time on the road. And when we both have Zoom meetings at the same time with our cameras on, if we don't have really solid internet, that's our biggest issue. We even have a whole blog post about that because people are just like, how do you do this? And the answer is like, but background information. We have hotspots for every major internet provider.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. It's probably our biggest expense. Aside from the actual RV itself, is our internet every month.
Yes, that's a pretty big concern for me when I'm traveling too. And, you know, since my travel is different, I'm not traveling in an RV. I pack all of my stuff in my car with my cat, Stella, and we go from Airbnb to Airbnb. And most of that was that, interestingly enough, comes down to tech fears too, because I was scared to be on the road by myself in an RV. And then like, if I broke down, how to find someone to trust. And like, so like, I trust my car is relatively new. I can always take it to a dealership. So, and I know basic car maintenance. So let's just drive from Airbnb to Airbnb. I'll get to explore new places, but I'll also get to like settle for a little while and decompress. So that's been interesting.
When you don't have to empty your own sewer.
Yeah. That's a good one. Or worry about like water hookups or anything like that. Like I would just be so, I'm sure I could figure it out if I made myself do it, but it's just so intimidating, like that I don't know where to start factor kicks in. And I think that stops a lot of people from doing a lot of things, quite frankly. Like I was telling you with the travel logistics on this one, Wi-Fi is the primary thing that I look for, followed immediately by, will they let me bring my cat? Which was an interesting thing to discover, that there are a lot of pet-friendly places on Airbnb that will not accept cats. They are dog only. So
really?
Yeah. And it's really funny because Stella is like a dog cat. She's totally chill, other than occasionally crashing some of my podcasts and my Zoom meetings. But like she walks on a leash and she plays fetch, and almost all of the Airbnb owners have met her at some point and been like, oh my God, she's so cool. She's so chill. Yep. But there are so many places that are like, nope, no cats.
So odd.
Start the search again. Here we go. How do you guys pick where you want to go next?
Honestly, we generally have a location, and our 3 kids are in different parts of the country. So maybe we're going to see one of them. Maybe it's something we really want to see. I had Monument Valley on my bucket list for my 50th birthday. So that's where we were last September. And then it comes down to, what's the internet going to be like? Seriously, is where. And so if we want to see something like Monument Valley, 0 internet unless you are at the one lodge, where you can be at. So then we plan that for a weekend, or we take the time off. But there are we went to Canada pre-COVID. Canada's Wi-Fi situation is way different than the US's. We had to really adapt to that. So we kind of had to, we made it work, but we took a lot more time off than we had planned. And then sometimes we had to bail. We were in Maine. After Canada, we came into Maine, and we had just been struggling with internet for so long. We were supposed to see the whole East Coast. And I think we were in New Hampshire at that point. We'd been in New Hampshire for a week, and we bagged it, and we just hightailed it to Florida. When you're over 60 feet long, because we're a truck and our RV is 42 feet. That is not a quick trip, but we were just so desperate. Like at some point you just want something to be easy and familiar. Yes. And we knew in Florida, we were going to have good internet. So we went to Florida. We stayed there all winter because it was just easy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Winter in Florida can be like really mild and nice. And so I totally understand why people retire there, because the weather is just fantastic. Like right now, as we're recording this, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. And like, this is the most chill summer I've ever had so far, because it's like every day I wake up in the morning and it's like high 60s and like the fog is burning off into the sunshine in the mountains. And then the hottest it's been here so far has been like 82, 83. And coming from Houston, Texas, where, I spent a lot of time, I practically grew up there, in San Antonio, where I'm originally from, with like 115 degree summers. Yep. And then humidity on top of it. Like, oh man, this is a treat. But the same thing, like there was one place that I went to where they advertised strong Wi-Fi in the Airbnb listing, and it kept cutting out. And in fact, on one walk through the neighborhood, I wound up talking with a neighbor who I probably shouldn't say it, but the name of the internet provider was called Suddenlink. And the neighbor goes, oh, you mean sudden drop? Okay, well, this is a known problem. Cool. I think I'm going to have to tether my phone to some of these calls just to make sure that we don't drop. Whoa.
Yep.
Super fun technological challenges. I'm really interested in this, bucket list and figuring out, like, how long are you guys traveling?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because when we started, I have 3 children, and they're 16 months apart, which is its own story. But none of them are twins. But when the middle one graduated from high school, our youngest had been offered this really cool opportunity in Tennessee, and he'd been going to high school in Tennessee. So we had not, we'd see him in the summer, but we had not done any of the school stuff with him. And contrary to what most people think, we actually liked him a lot. We did not send him away. We gave him a great opportunity. Everybody's like, what was wrong with Kelty? Why did you send him away? So we wanted to be with him his senior year. And so our daughter graduated in June and had her life all planned out and everything. And we said, let's just go. Let's buy an RV and go and spend the next year in Tennessee. We would leave Tennessee when it got real cold or whatever, but we'd come back and do school stuff with him. And so that was kind of how it started. And then as we went through it, we tried to sell our house and we didn't. It just didn't sell. The market was different then. So we rented it out. And we said, we'll do this until we start having grandkids. Like, this is the perfect time to do it. And our kids are in Idaho, Orlando, and South Dakota. And so it was perfect, right? Well, last summer, our daughter got married and she's having a baby this summer. So now we're like, no, wait a minute. We said we'd stop when we had grandkids, but you had grandkids way too fast. We're not done. So we're in negotiations right now, my husband and I are kind of negotiating with each other as to like, do we take the house back? Do we, what do we do? So the plan was that there would be no grandkids for a while. But then at the same time, like now we'll get to see the kid because we'll be able to travel.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so fantastic too. Because I think a lot of people have asked me about my plans on the road and they're like, where are you going next? Or like, where are you going to be in like 6 months? What do you do? And I have no idea where I'm going to be. Sometimes when I get here, that is like I have to settle for a week or two and then figure out what the next place is. And that's going to be like a combination of driving distance. Is this a place that I've wanted to visit? Can I find something that I can afford that has the Wi-Fi and lets me bring my cat? Like that actually, I'm currently in Asheville. I'd planned to go to Charleston next because I thought, historical town, would love to visit that. Summer is the wrong time to go to Charleston, apparently, because all of the Airbnb prices go insane. I found a freaking tin can trailer that somebody was renting out for like $6,000 a month. And I was like, are you washing my underwear? Are you cooking me meals? I'm not paying $6,000 to stay in your tin can because you're in Charleston.
You could buy your own tin can for that.
I know, that was so ridiculous. And I was like, well, whoever you are, enterprising entrepreneur hosting your tin can on Airbnb, I hope that you are doing well, but I think you're ridiculous.
That's insane.
So I can't go to Charleston because, I'm not independently wealthy.
Well,
but
that's okay. You can go on the off season when it's cooler. Because you're Texas, you're hardcore heat. But, there are better times to go to Charleston. You could go like a little more north. Like I've got some great ideas for you. We'll have to chat.
Oh, yes, definitely. Incidentally, that's been how some of the people have talked about the adventures that I've been sharing, which mostly have been on my Facebook page so far, but they're talking me into blogging more and sharing more on social media, which I'm about to do. So the people that have seen my adventures so far have been like, oh my God, how are you finding all of these cool things to do? And it's been exactly through conversations like this. Oh, you're going to Charleston? I know a place that you need to go. Or like in Asheville, amazingly enough, I have multiple friends here that I didn't know lived here. And so earlier I was texting with one and was like, hey, I'm leaving in like a week and a half. We should meet up before I go. Only all of the weekends between now and when I leave are full because Father's Day is coming up as we record this. And she was like, okay, how about dinner tonight? That's what I love about this business and this lifestyle. Because I can just decide, after my last recording of the day, I don't like cooking dinner after podcast recording day. It's a special kind of draining to just talk to so many people in one day, but it's so much fun. And I wouldn't do it any other way. But yeah, I'm not cooking for myself tonight. So we're going to go out to a fancy dinner.
That's super fun. I love that about this lifestyle. Like I heard that, one of the big marketing guys was coming to town to do a presentation. We were supposed to leave. And it was like a small group thing. And we just decided, let's stay. And we weren't going to. It's like, we're going to miss him by 2 days. And there's wait a minute. Like, why would we leave? We don't have to go anywhere. And so I love that. Or we'll get to a place and we're like, well, we've seen it all. We've done it all. We're ready to move on. Right now, we've been parked. We're in Minnesota, which is where we're from. We're actually staying. One of my family members has a full hookup campsite at their house in this beautiful wooded space. And it's awesome because it's free. And so we'll be here a lot of the summer, but we're both really itchy to go. Like we see people on the freeway on Friday and Sunday and we're like, we're ready to go. And so, I love that lifestyle.
I totally get that. Well, and that's interesting too, because you definitely have a little bit more freedom and flexibility to like, I want to stay a couple more days. It's a little bit harder with the Airbnb unless you can say to the host, hey, I'd like to extend a couple days. But I've had that happen a couple of times. Like I found out about a podcast conference that's happening that I really want to go to. It's going to be in Nashville, which I just left about a month ago and is like the opposite direction from where I'm going. So now I'm like, I kind of want to meet other podcasters and like figure out what I can do to make the show even better. But I also don't want to drive any more than I have to because I'm already driving a lot.
But Nashville's a pretty awesome place to have to go back to.
That's true. That's true. And I did find that one donut distillery place that I love that did a mimosa flight with mini donuts. Oh my God. That was so amazing. I'm going to have to make sure to post that. I think that was the most surprising about all of the adventures that I've been sharing is how much people really like pictures of my food.
Isn't that crazy?
I know, like for a while I stopped doing it too, because I was like, this is obnoxious. This is like that older millennial thing of like, look at my sandwich. It's great. And people are like, what are you talking about? You're stupid. Stop posting your food. So I stopped for a while. And then people actually started messaging me going, where's the food? We're living vicariously through you. You need to. That happened about New
I don't know
Orleans.
about your parents, but my parents are like, why are you taking a picture of your food and why are people looking at your food? Like,
I know. Well, and now the funny thing is it's apparently been giving people permission to kick ass. It's been giving people permission to either like try something new or indulge a craving or go out and find, especially if they're not feeling safe in, pandemic times. Mm-hmm. I was really careful, especially since my first stop was New Orleans, to try and find places that were independent versus chains, like local mom and pop shops. And especially if they had like a patio or an outdoor seating area, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be here. I'm going to enjoy the food. I'm going to have all the food. And I think it was in Nashville. Yeah. I went to a French restaurant and I ordered 2 desserts for myself. And then like everybody at the bar literally cheered the waiter was so confused when he came up and he was like, who is this for? And I was like, yeah, that would be me. Both right here. And everybody was like, hell yeah, you go girl. We're going to cheers to you. You're having 2 desserts. I'm like, yeah, I am that kid that like, give me all of the food, all of the desserts. Fantastic. I'm just going to like rant about travel this entire time. But what I really want to talk about is the reality of, like you said, working from the road is its own separate thing. Like I know, I have like a travel schedule that involves, and I've got it down to a science now that I've been on the road for about 7 months. It's like Friday, I pack and clean. Saturday, I load and drive. And then Sunday, I like unpack and settle in. And then that way I can hit the ground running on Monday and get back to work. Do you have like rituals and routines like that? Or is it a little bit more flexible?
It depends on where we're traveling and what we're up to. We're part of a campground membership where there's campgrounds all over the country. And a lot of full-time people, there are full-time families alone. There's like 70,000 of them in one of the groups that I'm in. It's a huge thing. Yep. And a bunch of them belong to these campground memberships. When we're staying at those campgrounds, we always move on a Tuesday or a Wednesday because the weekend people come in on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they get the good campsites. Ooh. And it's plumb full. So when we get there, it's a first come, first serve situation. We can't get the site that we want. If we're anywhere else, we try to not move on the weekends unless we have long driving days. And we do not drive more than 4 hours at a time if we can help it. We're very heavy. We're 26,000 pounds and we're, like I said, over 60 feet long. So, and that's standard, but that takes a lot of concentration if I'm driving, when I drive a car, sometimes I'll get sleepy on a long car trip. When you're driving a vehicle like that and you're constantly checking your mirrors and you're constantly watching what the people around you are doing, you don't get sleepy, but you get exhausted. Like it's different. Like it's not car trip sleepy. It's like, I am really tired from concentrating. And so if we are driving during the week, we take turns driving while the other person's on a meeting in the front seat next to us.
Oh, interesting.
So we do a lot of that because we're almost always on interstates for those big moves. And then we have good Wi-Fi on the interstates.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would say like I have a similar rule for travel. It's got to be usually within 4 to 6 hours because I think that's the max that I'm willing to listen to Stella sing me the song of her people because she does not like car trips, which it's really funny because she will settle at the new location within 5 minutes and be totally fine. But in the car, this cat does not like it. Does not like it at all.
Our dog hates the car. He loves it's a truck. He loves the truck. He has the back seat. We built a whole platform so he doesn't fall into the pit of despair. You know where your feet go. Yeah. So he's got a whole platform with a big cushy bed. He's a standard poodle. But when he goes in the truck, he has to wear this special vest, not for a seatbelt so much as the fact that we can't get him in the truck. The truck is too big to get him in. Mm-hmm. So we have to have this handle on him. He gets so mad at us. He turns around backwards and curls up in a ball and faces the back seat and never sleeps, never falls asleep, stares at the back seat, will not respond to us, will not eat, will not drink until we take that vest off of him and get him out of the car.
Traveling with pets. Oh my God, they're so sassy. Yeah. Stella has a love-hate relationship with her harness too. I take her in a backpack, which has freaked out a lot of people because it's got like mesh panels, but she's a black cat. So when I don't want to leave her in a hot car, like when I stop for gas or if I just need a break from yowling for a bit. And she's a black cat. I put her in this backpack. I'll usually take her in someplace, which will cause her every once in a while. Meow. Meow. And then people are like, where's the meowing coming from? It's me. They look confused for a second until they come around the side and just see these eyes like staring out of the backpack. And then she usually meows at them and they see her teeth and like, oh, it's a cat. It's so funny. The interesting thing for me too has been, I have to travel on the weekends, I think just because of how I've structured my business day during the week, which is I resisted it for so long because I thought I'm a true creative and I need freedom and flexibility every day. But really that just turns into chaos every day and I don't know what I'm doing. So I worked really hard to get my schedule down to where like Tuesday and Thursday are my coaching call days, whether I'm being coached in a mastermind or I'm coaching someone else. Wednesday are my podcast recording days. And then those are like the only days that I take calls. I leave Monday and Friday free so that I can explore if I want to. And then on those call schedule days, if I have an unexpectedly light day where nobody booked any calls, that's also an adventure day, like woohoo, or catch up on work or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So do you have any kind of like scheduling that you do as you're traveling like that?
Mm-hmm. So Fridays, I always leave open for the same reason, because then we can go out exploring. If we know far ahead enough that we're going to want to do something, we'll block off some other days. Yeah. Mondays, I am a true introvert. And so if I know I have a call on Monday morning, I start stressing out about it on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I don't do any calls on Mondays if I can help it, unless it's an emergency, because sometimes I help people with their launches. A lot of times they're online launches and sometimes there will be an emergency. And so I then have Mondays open for that. So I try to squish everything into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Mm-hmm. And it's also with the video calls, it's also like a makeup and hair thing, right? Like there are some days that I just do not want to be presentable.
Yeah. See, that's another consideration too, especially post-COVID as like I hate the word new normal, but like as we readjust to clearly things went off the rails for the pandemic. And I used to joke that I had like work PJs and then regular PJs because I was always dressed for comfort since I worked from home long before the pandemic. But now it's like, as we're entering a world where more and more people are comfortable with remote work, what does that look like? What does that sound like? How do we adjust? And so I'm trying to like update some of my wardrobe choices here while also not putting on a full face of makeup and doing my hair every day because I just don't want to. Mm-hmm. I don't. They can't see it, but there's a sign behind me that says fresh out of Fox. I bought that sign for a reason. It's totally true.
That's the one thing I've noticed. We're home in Minnesota where my parents can drop in, or my aunt and uncle who live on this property can be walking by. And so the first thing my mom will say to me is, are you not feeling well today? I think you could use some lipstick. You know?
I thought it was going to be one of those things because like it used to, before everybody was familiar with working from home and working remote, I had a lot of friends that mistook working from home to mean free anytime I need. And so they would drop by. And it's not that I was upset because I know that I'm fortunate to have friends that want to just like drop by and visit or invite me to lunch or let's go do pedicures. But I felt myself constantly getting frustrated because I had to remind people like work from home, work being the keyword. Yes, I have to actually be at the computer. And this has actually come up a little bit with the adventures that I have now too, because people are like, post more of your adventures. And I'm like, you don't understand. Every adventure I've had, I posted. The rest of the time, I'm working. Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to pay for these bills. Again, I'm not independently wealthy. So, got to pay. My Airbnb host would like me to actually give them money to stay here as much as I'm sure that they think my cat and I rock. They have a business to run too.
One of the funniest things that ever happened to us around that is my mom and dad have a house in Phoenix in the winter, and we will go there. We've learned to only go there on the weekends because we were sitting, my husband is actually not a creative and not a freelancer. He has like a legit job where he has to be on calls and, look like a normal human and be professional. And he was on a Zoom call with people. He was actively talking. He was presenting. My dad walked up behind him, put his hand on his shoulder and said right into my husband's microphone, Brett, what kind of wine should I get for Easter on Sunday?
Oh my God. Read the room or lack thereof. Yeah, I had an ex-partner.
Could see him, and he's like, "I'd like to introduce my father-in-law." And then my dad got so embarrassed. Now they give us pretty free, like they don't come near us if they think we might be on the computer. But it's like, what? Why do you think? Who do you think he was talking to? Like, do you not understand any of this? And we run into that too. Like, my mom and dad showed up this morning, and they said, "Are you working?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm working.
Yep. I'm free to talk if you see me like sitting in the corner staring off into space. But if you see me talking, assume that there's somebody that I'm talking to.
Exactly.
And I haven't just slipped into a dissociative state randomly. Yeah. I used to have a partner that like for some reason, and he worked for NASA. So it was the strangest thing. Like I never interrupted his meetings because it's freaking NASA, but he had no problem coming around and like sticking his nose into the webcam right here and just like interrupting meetings. It's like, what is wrong with you? I make my money this way too. Oh gosh. That's, I think there's a lot more understanding for that now with remote work becoming so prevalent. And I can't say that I love the pandemic because it was horrible. It's a global tragedy, of course, but I think one of the best things to come from it as a result was so many people recognizing that they didn't have to be in an office tied to a desk, that they could have a little bit more freedom and flexibility, and heaven forbid, even get more work done in less time when they weren't focused on being 40 hours at a desk. Yep. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Well, and I know there was one thing that we talked about before the call that I thought was really interesting too, because of the way that you framed it. You talked about getting some bad news from one of your business building heroes and it being like the best thing that you could have heard. Will you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I was not always techie. I used to have a different business. And it was a business my husband and I did together. And it was all about teaching kids about financial literacy. And we were pretty hardcore in how we did it. And we wrote a book about it. And our kids were on a budget when they were 7. They managed all their own money. They paid for all of their own things.
Oh, wow.
And so we were really excited about this idea. And it just was not gaining traction. So I paid for this really expensive mastermind, especially because I wasn't making any money. So it seemed extra really expensive.
Yeah.
And 6 months into this really expensive mastermind, I show up at the first live event and we had shot videos. And so the guru running the mastermind reviewed my videos and he said, how were these received? And I said, not well. And he said, you know what? I have to tell you that I don't think this business is going to work. Mm. And that, it was a collective, air suck out of the room moment. And he was very gentle, really gracious. You could tell from his face, he did not want to say this to me. And he knew this because he had experience with my particular type of product. It wasn't that he was just about crushing dreams or anything like that. I still love him to this day. I mean, he's still one of my all-time, big mentor superstar guys. And he was so worried. And this would happen on a Wednesday. It was the very first day of the event. It was a 5-day event. Mm. And so I sat back down and we talked through it and why it wouldn't work or whatever. And I sat down and I realized I had a huge sense of relief because in my soul, I knew it wasn't working. And he had just given me permission to be done and to move on with something.
I love that. Because on the one hand, the devastation, right, of being this thing that you've worked so hard on, that you clearly care very deeply about, just isn't working. That's kind of a gut punch in and of itself to react to. But just recognizing that there's a relief buried in there too, of I don't have to keep working on this. I think there's so much kind of lore tied up in the entrepreneurship world, the entrepreneurship space, especially in the US, where it's like, no, like you have to keep going. If you just keep working at it and you just keep investing in it, eventually you're going to hit that and you're going to have that hockey stick growth where like, woo, it takes off like a shot. And I don't know anybody that it's really happened that way for.
No, and I think we have a sense too. One of the things when I'm helping people with their online stuff, a lot of times they're going down a path of something that they've done in the past, that they're an expert in from corporate America, or something they know that they can do. And so it's like the low-hanging fruit. I did this for years in my job. I got downsized, whatever. Now I'm going to turn it into something online, but their heart isn't in it. And for us, what it was is this Kids and Money program had worked really, really well for us. Our friends were in love with it. They're like, oh, can you teach our kids? You need to do a program. You need to write a book. But I never loved it. It was like my personal life. And I was doing it as a service to other people. And I just, and maybe that's why it was never going to work, honestly. I think because you do really have to have your heart in something. And so I think the guy actually thought I was a little bit like off my rocker, because instead of being, oh no, what am I going to do for the next 5 days? I was like, what can I come up with? Like, I couldn't just let it sit. I had to come up with something new. And so, and when I talked to my husband, that I was like, guess what? I was just told this business is never going to work. And he's like, you sound a little happy. Have you been drinking? But it was just such a realization that I had been going down the wrong path. It was the square peg, round hole type of thing.
I love that. I've been writing some notes as you were talking, and like, I know there are people that disagree with me, and the great news is that you can't talk back right now. So screw you. I am one of those people that says that you have to have some sort of passion for it. And I totally get that there are people that are sustained by the money, but like, if the money is not coming, or if you hit a rough patch, like think about how easily it is to get disenchanted, quit, frustrated, when you're just chasing the money. Like, I loved writing, and I still love writing as long as I'm really doing it for me or for like projects that I'm super excited by and interested in. But after 10 years as a copywriter, there was somewhere in there in the pandemic, especially, where it was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't what I want to be doing. I had a passion for it. I pursued it. I got really good at it. I made a lot of money doing it, both for myself and for my clients. Okay, now I'm ready for the next thing. And so I honestly think I would, if I had ignored that feeling of like, I've lost kind of my passion for this, unless it's just writing for my own stuff, that I would have turned in less and less work and like wound up sabotaging myself just because I lost that joy of producing the work. So I think, I'm totally on the same boat with you on that one. It's like, you have to have some sort of passion for it. And if you recognize at some point that you are just doing this just because, maybe try something else. It's totally okay.
And what's really interesting about that is when I got involved in tech, it happened at that event that when I got to the event, if anybody had asked me if I was techie, I would have said no. Like, I do not know anything about tech. But I was a virtual assistant also at the time. And so I was kind of doing a few techie things here and there. And when I had paid for this course, I was like, I am going to figure this out. Like, I am going to go all in. And so after he gently told me that my business wasn't going to work, I'm sitting at a round table, because we were at round tables, and people were saying, like, muttering under their breath, oh, he's talking about landing pages. I don't even know what a landing page is. How do you do this email service thing? And it wasn't that I had a passion for tech, but I had the answers that they needed. And so I just started answering people, and they said, you should have a business doing this. And I thought, now that you say that, I guess I didn't think about it at the time. Now that you say that, my passion at that time wasn't for the tech. It was for helping those people. They had paid the same amount of money that I had paid, and I was horrified that they could have gone 6 months in this huge investment and not have known the very basics. And the program has been rejiggered now so that they cover all that, and it's all fine and good or whatever. I don't want to badmouth anybody, but my passion did not start out for the tech. It started out for the people that I wanted to serve. And so I think sometimes that can be the passion too. Now oh, I'm totally into the tech, which most people are like, how? People always tell me that, like, you can't be passionate about tech, Tracie. There has to be something else. No, it's like a puzzle for me. Like, if this does not work, there is something broken and I need to figure out what's broken and fix it and think it through. And I'm a total escape room junkie. I love jigsaw puzzles.
That's awesome.
Right? Yeah. But
we need to do one of those.
Passion can be either way.
Yeah. And you can discover a passion. I think that's a great point too. Like, you can think that you don't like something and then discover through, happenstance or necessity that you actually like it a lot more than you thought. Like, I think it would surprise a lot of people to find out, given how much I write, if you're familiar with my work, that there was a point in time when I thought I hated writing. There really was. And it wasn't recently, it was actually in high school and college when people told me how to write, and that this rigid structure that we follow in order to write, our paragraph, our intro, our 3 supporting points, and our conclusion, like that was really the way that you wrote successfully. And I almost kind of had to unlearn all of that writing to get really good at the kind of writing that I do now, which was interesting. So I started out kind of similarly, like I didn't think that I liked this. And then I discovered, I could do it differently from what I've been taught to do. Actually, this is a lot more fun now than I thought it was.
Yep. Well, and the flip side to that too is I'm passionate about travel. I'm passionate about it being in an RV. And people have often said to me, oh, you should make that your business. No. I mean,
digital nomad instruction or something?
Right, exactly. Like, teach other people how to do it. And I thought, I don't want that. I don't want to feel like every place I go, I have to write a review or do a blog post or take X, Y, and Z pictures and monetize something I'm passionate. There are some times that you can be passionate about something and you just want that to be your passion because it gives you pleasure. You don't have to monetize a passion. Yeah. And I think that's another thing is there's somebody in particular who keeps telling me, oh, I don't think you're passionate about tech. I don't think, and I'm like, who are you to say that to me? You don't know what I'm passionate about. And they really think I should go down the travel road. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I like having my 2 worlds.
And that's a good point too, that I didn't think we'd wind up talking about on this call. Like, look, guys, if you ever hire a coach to work with you on your business to help you figure out your vision, get clarity, figure out next steps or something like that, if there's somebody that is overly prescriptive like that, I'm going to encourage you to cut bait and run, because I don't think any coach should come into a situation presuming that they have the solutions for everyone. I know flat out that there are people that don't like me. That's great. I probably don't like you either. It's fine. There's 7 billion people on the face of the planet. You can find someone that you like. There's a lot of people that do business coaching. You'll find someone that you like. It's great. You don't have to like me. I don't have to like you. Blessings to you, my friend. But I think, I'm so passionate about that. Like, I'm anti-prescriptive coach. And I think I've wound up like inadvertently frustrating some of my students sometimes, because they'll ask me a question and say, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think you should do? And they're like, I'm just looking for answers. And I'm like, I know, but I don't have them because I'm not in your head. And, I can tell you what I would do, and I could give you the reasons why I would do that. And I could tell you the pros and cons that I see from outside the situation. But still, at the end of the day, anything that I decide to do could very well clash with what your gut is telling you to do. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. And they hate me for it, but then they appreciate me for it, because afterwards they make a decision that isn't a lot, like you said, this is my gut feeling that I don't want to monetize this passion. You may change your mind at some point. You may never change your mind, but you've got to follow your own gut instinct at a certain point when building your business, for better or for worse. And you might wind up being right about that. You might wind up rethinking that, but like, I'm definitely in team, don't tell me what to do. In terms of coaching. I don't know. It's always worked out better for me, I think, when I work with people that encourage me to trust my own intuition and follow what my brain and my heart and my gut are telling me is right for me and for my students and for the future of my business, versus somebody that says, no, trust me, I've put tens of thousands of people through this exact process, just follow the steps. And to a certain extent, that's true. Follow the steps and learn what you can from it, but always, learn it and then make it your own and do what feels right for you.
Yep.
So, and then I loved this other thing that you talked about at the event, where I think you were spot on accurate. A lot of people would have felt really super defeated to come with this business idea and then be told by the guru himself, like, nope, not going to work. And instead of like leaning into that defeat and being like, oh no, I'm here with all these other super smart business people and I have an idea that doesn't work. Woo, woe is me. There can be a tendency to have a pity party, right? I know I've fallen into that trap before, but you said something that was so great that I wrote it down. Like, ooh, what can I come up with now that I can work on for the rest of this weekend that I thought was really important? What do you think led you to that versus just sinking into this isn't working, oh no, woe is me feelings?
Well, I'm a quick start. So when I come up, like it is very common for a coach that I'm working with to say after they've worked with me for a while, now I'm just giving you an idea. Like, you need to think about this for 1 week, because otherwise they'll throw an idea out and the next day I have a website and I have the social media channels all set up. And so, and
I know a lot of people that operate like that,
yeah,
like just idea to idea.
They had a business center. And so this happened on Wednesday, and by Friday night we had a cocktail reception and I was passing out business cards for the new business. And
wow.
So, and it was great. And I totally got away from what your original question was. I got sidetracked. I do that.
No, that's, hey, I get sidetracked all the time. It was basically about like what made you to decide to lean into the excitement of what can I come up with versus leaning into the disappointment of, oh no, my business idea won't work.
For me, it was actually financial. Like I had joined this mastermind. I had 6 months left to go before I was either done or I had to renew. And I was determined that if I had made such a stretch to pay for this, I had to come up with something else. And what better place to do it than surrounded by like the smartest people I'd ever been in a room with? Maybe they didn't understand what a lead magnet was or an email service, but they were all experts in whatever they were there for. And I think that that's such a cool spot to be in because
yes.
And it's interesting. I'll talk to my parents or friends or whatever, and they all think that I have all these friends all over the world because I travel. And that's not why. It's and that I know all this stuff. Like I know a little about a lot of things because my clients and the people I hang out with are all experts in their fields, whether they're a shaman or they help women in leadership or, whatever they might do. And so, yeah, it's just such an interesting place to be when you're in a spot like that. At least for me, it was sort of I have to take advantage of the situation because I might never be in this spot again.
Mm-hmm. And I think all of that is that speaks to a good mindset, I think, which I would encourage if you want to be in business for a while, if you're already in business, to adopt this kind of mindset of like, okay, what next? What do I do now? Versus, is this a sign I should quit?
Right.
Oh my God, and then just like dogpiling on yourself with all the shit that you do wrong, which is clearly proof that you were never meant to be an entrepreneur. Newsflash, I don't know a single entrepreneur out there that just like walked into a room and said, hey, I have $1 million idea. And somebody else went like, okay, here's a check for $1 million. Like it just doesn't work that way. I've railed on this before in past episodes too, but like the idea of you could take your laptop to the beach. Fuck that. I'm not taking my laptop to the beach. If I'm at the beach, I want to enjoy the beach. Like, no. Oh, yep. I hate the idea that people talk about, and that's really the whole reason behind why I created this podcast too, because the first time that I spoke to someone who, behind closed doors expressed the meltdown that they were going through every time they took on a new client. They had been doing this for years, but for some reason, every time they took the money, it was like, oh my God, can I do this? Will I let them down? Will they hate me? Is this the one that ruins my reputation? And like, should I give their money back? And I was like, I thought I was the only one that did that.
I was just going to say that has to be kind of common. I do that all the time.
But just that person having the courage to say that behind closed doors to other entrepreneurs, it was like a light bulb moment for me. Wait, I'm not the only one going through all this. I thought you were that person that just like had all their shit together and confidently walked into a room and just handled things. And I think that a lot of people think that about me when they see it from the outside. Mm-hmm. And that's just inspired, like I said, the idea behind this, that like you can feel all these things, be worried about whether you're going to make it, constantly anxious if that's the way you process things, and still go out there and create a business that sustains you and helps people. And that's the beauty of this. That's what gets me all jazzed up about it. And that
I think
mindset.
that's the definition of an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. You just keep trying until you find a way that works. Like the other definition of entrepreneur that I like to float out there that I think makes a lot of us laugh is stubborn. Stubborn. Yes, tenacious, persistent. Those are other words for it, but I like to, I just refuse to quit until I find a way that works. And I'm not stubborn in the sense that I keep trying the same thing over and over and over again. That's the definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. Keep trying the same thing, expecting different results. Don't do that. But if you keep coming at it exactly the way Tracie said, that like, okay, well, that's not going to work. What else can I come up with? Mm-hmm. That's the exact, genius. I love it. We're running up against time, and I think we're going to have to do like a part 2 follow-up or something like this and just rant about travel some more. But tell us. Fun. Yeah, I know. Tell us, that time just flew by. It's crazy.
Yeah, it did.
Tell us a little bit more about where to find you online.
So my website is Launch Tech Made Easy, because I'm all about tech. Yep. And that's my Facebook handle too. I'm sorry. That will get you there. It's Launch with Tracie Shroyer or something. Somebody told me that was a good idea. Awesome. But if you go to launchtechmadeeasy.com, you'll find me. You'll find a lot of really great resources. We're putting the guide on there on how to get internet when you're on the road and what's important.
I need it. It.
I just have to make it pretty so that I'll put it on there.
I know people that can help you make it pretty if you want. That's fantastic. I'll make sure that they have clickable links in the show notes so that they can find you easily. Oh my God. Thank you so much. This is such a fun conversation. I can't wait to do it again.
Yes. Thank you.
So that is it. Another awesome episode of Permission to Kick Ass on the books. If you want to know more about the show, if you want to know more about me, Angie Coley, and the mission I'm on to help entrepreneurs punch fear in the face and do big, bold things, then head on over to permissiontokickass.com. That is all one word together, permissiontokickass.com. Make sure to sign up for my email list so that you know whenever there's a hot, fresh, and ready podcast episode out for you. And also on Mondays, I like to send out a little newsletter called Kick Monday's Ass. I'm sure you're totally surprised by that. So thank you for being here with me today. I'm Angie Coley. Make sure that you share this with a friend that needs to hear this message today. Like it, share it, comment wherever you're listening to this today, and let's go kick some ass.